All right, and we'll start our presentation. I'm going to share my screen. I do see a few folks are joining by phone. Shira, do you want to email out the slides just in case folks aren't able to see the presentation?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Okay. Oops. Get in here. All right, we'll get started. So this is probably the fourth time or so we've done an information session for agencies. You all are probably mostly your agency's green purchasing reporting designee. If you can mute yourself, please, or Shira may mute you if we're getting feedback from you. First of all, many of you have probably been through something like this. We'll try to touch on some of the same stuff to reinforce information, and some of it will be different. I am Emily Soontorn-Saratul. I work in the DGS Office of Energy and Sustainability. And I oversee two main programs. One is the Maryland Green Purchasing Program, which we'll be talking about today. And the other one is a newer program for electric vehicle infrastructure, which we won't talk about today. But if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out separately. I am joined by Shirja Ramesh, our Sustainability Officer, also in our office. Shirja is the main point of contact for you all. In terms of green purchasing reporting, she is the powerhouse behind all of our resources that we post to our website, and is just a wealth of information available to you on anything green purchasing related. We do have a general inbox that you're welcome to share with vendors, or you may also be submitting your data to.
Emily, I don't see your screen. I don't know if other people are having the same.
Thank you. Oh, it says I can't share my screen. What do I? Okay, let me try. If it doesn't work, Shira, you may need to check.
Sure.
See.
All right, try now. Okay.
Does that work?
Yes, I see you, or the screen.
All right, sorry. You would think this far into this, we would know what we're doing. And you would be wrong. No, I'm just kidding. There's always stuff that comes up. Our goals for today, I kind of touched on. We're going to review the basics, make sure you know what green purchasing is and what's required of you, provide you with some updates since the last time we've been together, or even if it's your first time, to make sure you know what's new in terms of green purchasing requirements. We'll be talking about reporting and have time for your questions. So we'll start with a review. I'm sure many of you have seen this slide before. We talk about what is green purchasing. In Maryland, it's defined in statute. So it's pretty clear. It's the procurement of products and services that have a lesser or reduced effect on human health and the environment. So two things, not just the environment, human health and the environment, when compared to competing products and services that serve the same purpose. So you are buying something, and the green thing is that which has a lesser effect on health and the environment. We also use other terms such as environmentally preferable purchasing, sometimes shortened to EPP, sustainable procurement, or you may hear us just say buying green. If you don't know already, this is important. If you do know, it's a reminder that green purchasing is supposed to be our default purchasing action. This is in COMAR. It says all procurement agencies shall purchase environmentally preferable products and services unless one of these things. They don't perform adequately, they exclude adequate competition, or are not available at a reasonable price in a reasonable period of time. Sometimes it's hard to make the determination on those 3 points, and we are here to help you navigate that. The market is always changing. Something that maybe didn't have cost parity a few years ago could now. So if you have questions about that, reach out. But otherwise, we should be buying green, and we are here to help you do that. Maryland's Green Purchasing Program itself was established in 2010 by the Green Maryland Act. So we are a mature program. That piece of legislation established an interagency green purchasing committee made up of 10 agencies and the University of Maryland. Publish environmentally preferable purchasing specifications. So that is those are our marching orders, and then it's supposed to be adopting and using those environmentally preferable purchasing specifications. We also do things like this, providing training and outreach. And as you know from the reporting requirements, we report annually to the legislature. I wanted to point out, because the vast majority of you on the call are procurement people, so you're familiar with NASPO, I'm sure. NASPO has a sustainability purchasing section on its website. Actually used to be, I think it used to be called Green Purchasing, and they've just recently redesigned it and updated it. And the link is here on the slide on the bottom. It's just naspo.org/sustainability. I want to point out that sometimes we're so busy like putting our head down and doing the work that we forget to look up and look around. And actually, Maryland is a leader in green purchasing. When we look up and look around and we look at our peer states, you can see from the little map in the center, the dark green states are those that basically have the greenest green purchasing programs, or the most robust green purchasing programs. Maryland is one of those few states. And basically in every section on NASPO's sustainability page, where it mentions these different areas that states can lead in green purchasing, Maryland is referenced and linked with specific examples. So we have executive orders, we have things in statute and law around green purchasing, which makes it a very strong program in Maryland. We have a robust website that can be a resource for you. We've also been really fortunate within the past couple of years to gain some national and international level recognition for the work that we've been doing. We recently got an award for Best Business Case for the first time, demonstrating some of the really concrete benefits of our program and how it results in cost savings, as well as health and climate benefits. We also got an award for environmental leadership from the Northeast Recycling Council. That council is not dedicated to green purchasing, but that award was specifically for our work in green purchasing. And we've gotten a couple of awards for our purchasing of green IT. So that's a really important one for us. We have a law around green IT that makes our program very strong, and it means that you all, by following the statute and doing what you're doing and reporting your data to us, means that we can capture those savings associated with doing that and be able to be recognized for doing what we're doing in green IT. Just a couple of updates. We want to make sure you're aware that we have a number of new and updated specifications just within the past year. Those that you see that are bolded have been updated with new information. In the past few years, the #1 requested resource from our procurement staff across the state are specifications. So language that they can just cut and paste into their solicitations to make it easy to make sure they're complying with law, they have all their bases covered. And so these resources can be a resource to you. These are all linked, by the way, when we send out that presentation and on our website. We wanted to thank you all for everything you did last year to provide your data to us so that we could include that in the report. We had 88 state agencies that had green spend on statewide contracts. Not all agencies buy off of statewide contracts, or they may do a combination of statewide and an agency level. So we had 11 agencies that reported on their own green spend. So why we know that it's a heavy lift for you to do all of this reporting to us, but we just want to talk briefly about why we even do this. Besides the fact that we have to, by statute, report to the legislature, but why do we do it in such depth? Why do we do it the way that we do it? Well, we need to self-assess and see how we're doing. We need some way to quantify and track what we are doing, how we are doing, what our green spend is. We're able to communicate as a result. And last year was a really good example of being able to quantify some of the environmental and social benefits. Also, there are fiscal benefits of green purchasing, and share that. So sharing our success and telling our story after we do all of this work, it's nice to be able to see what it means. It helps us identify areas that we can improve and do better. So we can look at the data and identify high impact commodities to green, where we can improve. We can make sure that we're in compliance with state laws. As a result of last year's reporting, we're kind of tightening things up and figuring out where there's a disconnect and some of the things we're supposed to be doing by statute, but are not. So it's really, really important. And we thank you for being a partner in that. If you have not already seen our fiscal year 21 report, we're really proud of it. It's published on our website. And this is just a little snapshot of some of the infographics that we have inside. And these specific tables talk about the benefits as a result of what we purchased. In fiscal year 21, we saved close to $1.2 million. We saved enough electricity that close to 1,000 average single family homes could be energized for a year. The carbon reduction associated with our green purchasing efforts resulted in a greenhouse gas reduction that's the equivalent of taking over 25,000 passenger vehicles off of the road for an entire year. So it's kind of cool to be able to see, okay, so we're doing all of this, and what does it actually mean? So that's the update on green purchasing. Now we're going to get into the reporting requirements, and for this, I'm going to turn it over to Shirajah.
Thanks, Emily. Let's just get right to it and go straight to the next slide, please. So as Emily mentioned, it is required by statute that agencies report their green spend to us by September 1st of each year. And that's stated in State Finance and Procurement Article 14-405, which again is also linked here. I will mention that even though the statute says September 1st or before, we are going to be asking for data quarterly, just because it makes it easier both on us and on you all to make sure the data gets in and verified and is analyzed enough to be submitted into our annual report by our deadline, which is end of September, so it can go into the legislature for October 1st. Next slide, please. So what are we asking for when we're asking you for green purchasing data? So we are specifically asking for purchases that are made outside of statewide contracts. So basically, these are contracts that are not administered by OSB, but instead come through your agency itself. We are also asking for data only in 7 specific product categories that are listed below, and I won't read them through them right now. They're also on the slides we just sent out. Next slide. Many of you have seen this template already. This is the reporting template that we have been using for the past few years on tracking green purchasing data. The first sheet, when you open up that template, will show you this specific slide essentially. And when you are reporting your green purchases, you can split them out on that first row where it says agency green spend into those 7 categories where it is highlighted. Where it says below that agency green spend on statewide contracts, DGS is going to be doing all of that work for you, so you don't have to worry about that. We are also you, Margie.
I don't know what that was.
So we are also asking for total commodity spend and total agency purchase spend information, which I'll touch on more in the later slides. Next, please. As I mentioned before, you are not required to report anything that you do on statewide contracts in terms of green purchasing. Again, DGS is covering that for you. We are also the vendors listed on the left here from AJ's, ATS, BISM, MCE, Xerox, Toshiba, all those vendors that are on statewide contracts, we are getting in touch with them and getting that data for you all. The ones that here are listed on the left is what we have included in our previous annual report. We are always working on expanding the number of vendors we are reaching out to. So as time goes on, as our capacity increases, the number of vendors and the scope of green purchasing that we are collecting data on will also expand. Next slide. So let's get into some examples of what you may run into when you're doing these reports. Let's say your agency is only buying off of statewide contracts and from the vendors that we've listed on the previous slide. So what do you do then? Essentially, we don't need any additional green spend data from you. All we do ask is if you have it to give us your total agency purchase spend numbers and your total commodity spend numbers. The ones that are below that long table on the templates. Next slide. So as you can see here, you don't have to report on any of the individual categories, just where it says total commodity spend and total agency purchase spend. Next slide. On the flip side, what if you are using your own agency level contracts to do your purchasing, and that includes green purchases? In this specific case, let's say you're buying office supplies and janitorial products off of your own agency level contracts. What do you do then? Next slide. We do need that data from you then on your specific green spend associated with each of those categories, so janitorial supplies and then office supplies, as well as the total commodity spend and total agency purchase spend. So that will give us a nice overview of what you're actually buying that can be considered green. Next slide. We all know that state staff, they're often really overworked and understaffed, that you all are very busy. We understand. So it's very, very convenient and helpful if you can just ask the vendors themselves for the data. And in our experience, they've been very cooperative in complying or cooperating with submitting that data to us. Just give them the template, give them the deadline schedule, and to make sure they continue in their cooperation, it's really important to start integrating green purchasing reporting requirements into your new contracts. If you go to the next slide, I have sample language that you can take a look at. So this is just a quick paragraph that you can paste into your solicitations, basically saying that the state of Maryland has the right to ask vendors for data on a quarterly level, on a quarterly basis for the life of the contract and on the green products purchased by the state. So you can modify it, adapt it, adopt it as you see fit. But I really, really do recommend you start integrating reporting requirement language into your contracts to really make sure the vendors know what they're going to be getting into and making sure that they're actually working with you to get what we at the state need. Next slide. There are, like, as I mentioned before, there are benefits to asking the vendors. One, vendors normally have these databases, these software systems to easily report on what they've been selling to the states. They also really track what kind of environmental attributes their products have, even the smaller vendors, smaller businesses. It's also, as I mentioned, easier on you all at the agency level. So you don't have to run through each line item and say, check your records, check your invoices, and tag them in individually. That's just too much work. Better whenever we can to pass it off and get someone who has that data and has that ability and capacity to provide it for you. And so all in all, I really do recommend asking the vendors for your green spend data. Next slide. When you do send out these templates to the vendors, all of this, again, I'll mention it later as well so you can see, but this is all available on our website in one place. So this reporting template is something probably many of you have seen before. Basically, it's just the basic data points that we are asking vendors for, such as which vendor are you, who is your state agency purchaser? In this case, actually, it will just be whatever agency you are with. What product category is that line item for? What is the product number, product description, material type, product weight, the extended price, so we can quantify how much green spend the state actually has. And very importantly, we are asking for the environmental attributes of those products. Next slide. So we have a whole list of environmental attributes listed on each product category within that template. So in that template, each product category has its own sheets, and within that sheet, it has a different number of eco labels that are relevant to that specific product category. And this is just an example of the general template, which has every eco label on there. Next slide. Reporting deadlines for fiscal year 2020 or 2022. We are normally asking that vendors give you the reporting data 1 month after the quarter ends. And then if you can give us that data about 2 weeks after the vendors give it to you. And that's just the general rule we have here. Next slide. So let's get into some of the questions that we've heard before and we thought it would be useful to address now. So what is total agency purchase spend? Where do I find it, right? So your agency is normally already reporting this number for your mandated reports. One of the common reports that you can pull this number from is the SBR report, and that designee should have this information to be able to provide it to you. If you can go to the next slide, please. On the SBR report, line item 9, where it asks for total procurement payments, that number is essentially just what we need for total agency purchase spend. Next slide. Total commodity spend is where you sum up 2 categories within those reports. You sum up supplies and equipment as well as IT supplies and equipment to get your total commodity spend. This is just useful for us because services are much harder to green, especially things like financial services. So to be able to get a real good understanding of exactly what the state is buying green, as well as what could possibly be green, we're just asking for commodities because they're so easy to make sure that they are environmentally preferable. So when you sum up these 2 numbers, the supplies and equipment, IT supplies and equipment, you'll get your total commodity spend. Next slide. And this is something we've heard a lot over the past year is, what if I don't have access to these numbers by the deadline? So we do fully understand reporting deadlines are in conflict here. The SBR MBE reports are often due around from the agency to whoever the collector is in the fall, like around September, October. So what if you don't have those numbers in time? We understand if you're not able to provide those numbers by our deadlines, just leave those cells blank. We'll understand. And we are currently working to get that kind of fixed. We have submitted a request to get those deadlines extended, and we're trying to get it pushed to December. Our reporting deadline request has been integrated into an upcoming bill that we will be presenting to the legislature through OSB. So we'll wish for the best with that one. Next slide. So having talked about all of that, what is required by agencies, what are those reporting requirements, let's get to the end part. What does a good data submission actually look like? Next slide. So you'll see this is a sample data submission from Bowie State that we got from them last fiscal year. Basically, they have been able to provide us with the product, who the manufacturer is, the pricing, as well as, very, very importantly, I'll say it again, the environmental attributes of those products, which is going to help us figure out if things are actually green. So we'll need that baseline to see, is this product meets Green Seal's requirement? For instance, if it's certified by Green Seal, then what we'll do on our end is we'll go in, we'll check on the Green Seal website for that product number, make sure it's actually certified by Green Seal, there's no greenwashing involved, and we approve it, we verify it, we pass it as green and include it in your agency's green spend numbers. So you can get credit for that and how well you're doing. Next slide. So again, I'll just make sure, really, I always want to emphasize this because it's happened in the past that we just don't get any environmental attributes on these green reports. We really do need that information. So please, please, please make sure you're filling that out. Make sure that you're asking the vendors, if they're not submitting that information, to go back and ask them to please do it again, in case they just forget or they don't think it's necessary. Make sure they know that this is part of it is required for them to report on. Next slide. So resources. We have put together a number of resources for you. And next slide. They all lie on our website. So if you haven't been on our website before, it's linked below. When you open up the PDF version of these slides, you'll be able to access that. But also, if you go onto DGS's homepage under 4 state agencies, the first line on there will be green purchasing. If you click that, you'll be taken to our homepage where you can access everything and anything related to green purchasing at the state level. Next slide. For the relevance of this conversation, we do have a page dedicated for agency reporting where you will have access to guidance on reporting, as well as the actual template itself and the reporting deadline. So everything is in one place, accessible to you, and just let me know if there's something you need and you don't see it there. Next steps. Please check our website. Anything, as I mentioned, regarding reporting will be on there. If it's not on there, ask us. We are really here as a resource for you. We would love to see green purchasing grow throughout the state. And so, yeah, we're really amenable to anything you may need. We know that there is a learning curve to reporting, that it can be a tough sell, but it's really important for us as the state to be able to get credit for the good work we're doing, to be able to green more items, and really just do a good job for the sake of the environment and for the sake of our public and our public's health. So with that, I will wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We'll open it up for questions and answers. So, Lori, I see your hand is raised. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I had a question that deals with 2 aspects, for the specifications and for the language that you developed to put in our solicitations in regard to asking the vendors. Have those been vetted by your AAG, or they all have been?
They all have, yep.
Okay. And when you said to adjust the line for the vendor, if we do change it, that would need to go to our AAG?
Probably not. The reason I've highlighted it is where it says Department of General Services. Okay. Because this is your agency, you can just put your agency name in there. If you make any more substantial changes, then probably you might want to ask the AAG in your office, but I think you'll be fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Quiet group today. Well, I would suggest if we let you all go a few minutes early, open up our annual report, take a look at it. Your agency is listed in it in the appendix for agency green spend reports. It's on page 42. So you should be aware of that information that's out there in the world about your green purchasing efforts. If you have questions about it, please reach out. And
I will also add the first 2 quarters deadlines have passed for agency submissions. So if you can submit data for quarter 1 and quarter 2 combined, that's fine. If you can get it to us by the middle of February, that would be perfect. So it would be the deadline for quarter 2, which is February 11th. Let us know if you have issues meeting that deadline. We'll work with you, but it would be great to get your data in and analyzed as soon as possible.
Agreed. It helps us catch things ahead of time, and it helps with Shira's massive workload of looking through just like tens of thousands of rows of data at the end of the year, which is just it's a little nutty. Were there any questions about the deadlines, what we're asking for total spends, or nope? All right, well, we'll hang on for a few more minutes if anyone feels shy. Oh, we'll stop the recording. And otherwise, have a wonderful day and thank you. Where do I stop the recording?
Isn't it by the more options? I can stop recording for you if you want.
If you can, yeah.